Last year, the pandemic has significantly disrupted and transformed traditional shopping behavior driven by economic uncertainty and a desire to avoid physical stores. We've seen a surge in the use of online channels that led brands large and small to rework their strategies for the future. According to a Capgemini report on consumer behavior, online shopping continues to accelerate and the pivot to online is expected to persist in the long term, even when consumers feel the pandemic is over. As the consumer and retail industry undergoes a massive shift, disruptors or challenger brands are taking the opportunity to challenge the status quo and as a result are claiming market share. These nimble digital-first D2C players have been able to evolve quickly, introduce market-relevant categories and use technology to meet their customer-obsessed targets. Name a category and there's likely to be a shiny challenger disrupting the existing model by cutting out the middleman to deliver a range of innovative goods direct to the consumer. So what can big retail learn from these brands and what kind of innovation can we expect from these startups as they go on to build large businesses capturing a chunk of the Indian market? Hello and welcome to Young Turks, India's longest running show on startups and entrepreneurship. I'm Shireen Bhan and joining me today are founders of consumer brands that have built disruptive businesses. With me on the program, Shan Kadavil, the CEO and co-founder of FreshToHome.com. Also with me, Varun Alag, the co-founder of Mama Earth. Praptej Singh Bhatia, founder and CEO of Simba, and Gautam Sinha, the founder and creative director of Napadori. Gentlemen, many thanks for joining us here on the program. Praptej, let me start by asking you, 2020 is over. We're at the start of a new year. We're hoping it's going to be a better year. But for a brand like yours, while restaurants, bars, hotels were shut for a large part of the year, in-home consumption perhaps saw volume seeing a big spike. How did 2020 pan out for you, and what's the outlook for the year ahead?
Well, Shireen, the first quarter, the April to June quarter, is the most important quarter for a beer company. And it was a complete washout primarily because a lot of liquor stores were shut. So the in-home consumption has definitely taken a huge spike. But because of the lockdown, we had suffered one of the biggest. Basically, the first quarter contributes to about 42% of annual sales for us, and that was a complete washout. However, now the demand is back, and we're hoping that this upcoming season, we're already seeing signs of it. The upcoming season looks very, very good, and probably would be one of the best years for Simba as a brand.
Wow, you're expecting it to be one of the best years for Simba as a brand. Shan, do you share that confidence and that optimism that we just heard there from Praptej as well? What's the story looking like as far as Fresh to Home is concerned?
So thank you, Shireen. So Fresh to Home has seen a pretty rapid progress in the last 12 months. Now, while pandemic has been a very terrible time for us, from offline to online conversion, it's been a terrific moment for us, right? So consumers have a real problem with wet markets to buy fish or meat, but they do not really know what it is until they try it online first. So what COVID really did is to give you that opportunity to try before you buy. And once they started buying from us, then it became extremely sticky. We saw over 4x growth in the last 12 months. So we've really accelerated in the last 12 months. We've hit over 600 crores in annualized sales. And a large part of that is the shifting behavior from an offline scenario to online. And we think that, even now that after 6 months into the pandemic, the peak is not yet over, right? We're continuing to seeing that shift. We are seeing that there's more and more trials. We're seeing much more sticky behavior. So we think this is really India's moment of converting from an offline scenario to online, right? Countries like China are seeing about 5% penetration in e-grocery. India is only seeing 0.3% in spite of that growth. I think this is really that radical shift that will take us from that 0.3% to about 5 or 6% of a $600 billion market. And that's a huge leap from any sort of digital D2C business.
Yeah, you're right in pointing that out, and we're seeing that across different sectors and different industries. And Gautam, let me put that point across to you. As Shan was pointing out, this change in customer behavior that was really, in a sense, pushed because of the lockdown. Customers were forced to go online, but there is perhaps that stickiness and that change in behavior that will result in an accelerated move towards greater digitization. What does that mean for a brand like yours? Is that changing the way that you look at the marketplace going forward? Will you be curtailing, for instance, your offline expansion? What's the online presence looking like at this point in time for you?
Fortunately, we were pretty geared up for being online. We've been investing into that for the last couple of years. So the pandemic came as a surprise to everyone, but at least we were geared up to have a pretty solid platform and to showcase the product. So that way we were kind of safe. But then again, it all depends on the product, right? And it all depends on what market segment are you targeting. And for us, luxury bags is something that I don't think anyone's looking at this point of time in terms of at least when everyone's scared of getting COVID, and it's been hard for us. We had to shut 3 stores. We obviously had plans to expand our brick and mortar offering, and we still do. I just feel that brands like ours need to be very tangible. Everything can't be online. And I do understand and I respect the pivot towards online and digitization. But at the same time, I feel brick and mortar is not going anywhere. People innately have ability to go out and experience things. And that experiential retail is something that's going to be strong in the coming future. So I think people need to look at that also seriously.
Yeah, so experiential retail will probably mean that we're moving more towards this sort of phygital presence for most brands, and that's how they're designing their product and retail strategy. But Varun, let me ask you, you founded Mamaearth in 2016. It was a digital-first brand, so clearly, in that sense, you were ahead of the curve, which has been pushed out on account of the pandemic. But what has the last 9 months done as far as business is concerned, and how are you hoping to leverage this big customer shift?
Hey, Shireen, thank you for having me on the show. I think the 3 big things that have happened for our business: one, Mamaearth was innately a brand which was built around safety and natural ingredients as credentials, and that is what people suddenly started looking for. So apart from the online shift, the brand DNA resonated really well with consumers. Our ranges like a vitamin C range, which is something which is a very on-trend ingredient right now because of the immunity credentials as well, suddenly picked up and started doing really well. And overall, as a business, we've actually significantly over-delivered on our stretched plans that we had taken on this year, and we're growing by more than 400% over last year. What we had done, and last year we had hit one of our benchmarks to be the fastest 200 crore personal care brand in the country. Now we are close to hitting the fastest to 500 crores. In terms of our run rates, and it also helped us on the profitability front. And we turned positive this year, and we'll see that continuing because a lot of early lead that we got, a lot of people were not investing in marketing when we were aggressively investing in the brand, resonated really well, because of which products sold faster than others. And as we move forward, I think I agree. Some of these trends, which is stickiness to this whole buying behavior online, where you can discover a brand better, you can know more about it, you can hear from others in form of reviews and social proofs how they're doing, right? Are very logical and are things which stick for beauty and personal care as a category. So I think those will stick. And in fact, we also use this period for expanding our offline presence, because everyone was going conservative in the offline areas, and retailers were looking forward to brands who are willing to invest in offline. Right? So while a lot of brands were going off shelves or taking visibilities and being conservative on that front, and we actually went aggressive on that front from the money that we were making in online, and because of which we expanded our offline presence from 3,000 to 10,000 stores in the last 6 months. So I think even there, we've actually seen that as an opportunity and not a challenge.
Well, I have to say, I discovered Mamaearth on a shelf in my grocery store, not online. So I get what you're talking about, and I guess it works out just as well. Prabtej, let me come to you now, because you said that you expect this to be one of your best years. What are you going to be focusing on in terms of expansion? What's the product pipeline looking like at this point in time? What are you most excited about?
Well, we're most excited about the summer because as a season that turns out to be the best time for us. But we are coming out with a couple of new products, and we're also expanding south. So what we've discovered in this period of pandemic, that southern India is more of an year-round market versus northern India, which is very skewed towards the summer. And that was one learning from this lockdown, that we should have gone
Yeah.
south earlier. And we are expanding aggressively towards Telangana, Andhra, Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu. So that is the region that we are focusing on, and we are also looking forward to launching at least 3 new styles of beers never seen before in India.
Okay, so looking at the south in a much more aggressive way, and 3 more beers to look forward to. But Gautam, let me ask you, it's been a tough time for you, though. As far as the home space is concerned, home decor category has actually done quite well through the course of the pandemic. Is that going to be something that you perhaps will now veer more toward, as you move forward? And what have been some of the other interesting learnings and lessons over the last 9 months that you hope to incorporate in the business plan going forward?
Yeah, for sure. We've been planning getting into home decor for the longest time, and it's kind of fast-tracked everything. And we're starting a new brand called Dori Living, which is going to be a part of Napa Dori and the offering that we give. And it's all got to do with easy livings, more sustainable, how you can make your home a lot more workable. And a lot of people have been working from home, they've been having the meetings, so how to make all now the new lifestyle a lot more easier and adaptable. And that's the new channel that we're going into. In terms of expanding and looking forward, I do feel that we do want to expand into our cafe line. We do have Cafe Dori, and we do want to expand and get a few more of those going. Food has been critical in terms of at least keeping us also relevant in this day and this time, because how much can you rely on people going and buying bags when everyone's home? And we were blessed because we did have Experience Center, and we did have an offering where we had a cafe and we had a store. So that environment kind of catered to a lot more. And that's worked for us, and then that's something that we want to take forward. In all our stores, we plan to have a little cafe offering, so it just makes the experience a lot more better.
Okay.
And
okay, so home decor through Dori Living and more cafes.
For sure, and I think that's the way forward for us at least.
Yeah. Shan, one of the other things that a lot of the people that we've spoken to, a lot of the startups that we've spoken to over the last few months have talked about how they've been able to sort of, cut the flab, so to speak, bring down costs, bring in efficiencies, optimization, and all of that's actually ended up being great for business. So we've seen burn rates coming down very, very significantly, and it's brought back sanity and unit economics on the table. So how's that panned out for you, Shan? And anything else that you're going to be doing differently in light of the experience through the pandemic?
So let me take your second question first, Shereen. So I think, the reason I started Fresh to Home is because I wanted to feed my kids chemical-free food, right? And we started that in 2015. And it took us 5 years to entirely vertically integrate the supply chain, right? Going directly to fishermen, to farmers, to poultry farming, and the entire aspect of it. And now we feel like we've managed that supply chain. And just tying that to your first question on profitability, really it's all about the gross margins, right? It's really all about using technology to really radically disintermediate the sort of industry in India. And in our case, it was about cutting off middlemen. Now, the middlemen would actually take the majority of the revenue, or if you buy a fish from a coast, say in a Cochin or Gujarat, and then try to bring it down to a Delhi or a Bangalore, about 50 to 60% of that gross margin was actually eaten by the middlemen, right? So what we did is we created a disruptive platform that essentially allowed us to procure really fresh, chemical-free, fish or chicken or the others, while cutting off the middlemen, and but giving a higher margin to the fishermen and farmers. So just connecting it back to your first question, it allowed us to be really profitable. So we were EBITDA profitable in Bangalore and Delhi, especially in the pandemic, because orders really rose up and our unit economic was positive. Our farmers and fishermen were happy because they were getting about 20% higher produce price than what they would get otherwise, right? And geographically, we would make it up. So it all was really a dream moment for us, right? We had a huge run, and that essentially made two of our most mature cities profitable. And at the same time, for the consumer, it allowed us to give them fresh and chemical-free product, right? And that's really what I'm the most excited about, continuing that legacy, adding more farmers, adding more fishermen on our platforms, and then geographically expanding pan-India and also internationally in markets like UAE and Saudi Arabia and so on.
Well, that's good to hear. Varun, is that on the cards for Mamaearth as well? Are you looking at going international? And more importantly, are you seeing a visible difference in the way that the consumer is resonating with Indian brands? Is that something that you're noticing? Is it a perceptible change in customer behavior?
So let me answer the first question first. So international, I think on the cards in the longer term, when right now we're just servicing demand from some countries which is coming in. So we are there in about 18 different countries. But all of that is inbound demand. We have not sort of invested aggressively in any of these markets. And our objective in the medium term is to first create a large business in the India market itself, and where apart from Mamaearth, we want to be a house of brands. So we've got another brand called the Derma Company, which we launched during the pandemic and in February last year, and has been scaling really well. It's a brand which is around chemical formulations which are science-based, and hence we would want to demonstrate more success on brands like that, which millennials love and are purpose-based in nature. And on what we, on the second question being, the things that consumers are resonating with. Could you actually repeat the second part of the question, please?
Yeah, this whole move towards local for vocal, or vocal for local. Apologies.
Right,
Is that resonating with the consumer?
Yes. In fact, it came at a very opportune time, and we did ride that wave. We continue to ride that wave. I think there is that trend is also a macro and a major trend globally, and where especially post-COVID, people are wanting local products, and local supply chains are far more reliable as well. And we have actively used that because 100% of the brand manufacturing happens locally, and all our ingredient sourcing is also local, right? So we have clearly found that to be resonating well with consumers, where at one point of time, consumers as well as even customers like retailers, etc., were taking and asking that question to us, saying, is it an Indian brand? And if the answer was yes, they were actually more positive towards it. So I think overall that actually has been a positive trend for the environment.
Okay, Prabtej, let me ask you finally, whether you've been able to make any changes on the supply side as well as the distribution strategy in light of the many lessons that the pandemic has taught us.
Yeah, well, the pandemic has been great because it gave us all a lot of free time and a lot of time for introspection. And there have been a few surprises for us. So I'm declaring it first here, but we started exporting to Australia and New Zealand, and we are getting tremendous response from there. And we are now, it was a very surprising thing. It was again an inbound demand, and we're exporting there. Another outcome of the pandemic was cost cutting, like you said. We actually looked back and said, there were a lot of decisions that we kept on pushing forward, and you'd never want to take decisions on. I think we took those decisions, and they've really affected our bottom lines. Like you said, burn rates have gone down for the companies. Our profitability is up because we've always been a unit economics focused company. And also, one of the new experiments that we're doing is we are now trying to grow our own barley in Chhattisgarh, where our brewery is located. And we've also tied up with a couple of new breweries that are coming. So you'll see our brands being manufactured in at least 5 more locations in this upcoming year. And right now we have only 2.
Well, as they say, necessity is the mother of necessity is the mother of invention, and our startups here on this panel have certainly used the adversity as an opportunity and delivered. And for some of them, it's actually ended up being pretty good year. So Shan, Varun, Prabtej and Gautam, we wish you all the very best with your new endeavors, with your new efforts, your new launches. Thanks very much for joining us, sharing your stories here with us on Young Turks. Wish you a great 2021. We will take a break here on the show, but don't go anywhere. We're back in a moment with a lot more.